History as we know it is built on a fragile story. This video uncovers 25 archaeological discoveries that defy our established timelines, from ancient machines rivaling modern tech to structures built by societies that should not have existed. You will gain a new perspective on human history, one where the past is far more mysterious and advanced than any textbook admits. How did a 2,000-year-old device predict celestial events with pinpoint accuracy? And why are there maps detailing lands buried under ice for millennia? What if everything you learned about ancient civilizations is only a fraction of the real story? In the quiet depths off the coast of Greece, a team of sponge divers made a startling discovery in 1901. Their hands probing the muddy remains of an ancient shipwreck, closed not around pottery or statues, but around the corroded fragments of a complex bronze device. This object, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, would lie in a museum drawer for decades before its true significance was understood. When researchers finally cleaned and examined the fragments, they found something that should not have existed. Intricate gear trains precisely cut from bronze were arranged in a system of bewildering complexity. Delicate dials and inscriptions covered its surfaces, a language of celestial prediction etched in metal. This was not a simple ornament, it was a machine, dated to around 100 years before the Common Era. The mechanism has been called the world's first analog computer. It could track the cycles of the moon, predict solar eclipses, and model the irregular motions of the planets with stunning accuracy. For centuries, classical history taught us that the ancient Greeks were brilliant philosophers, but not advanced engineers on this scale. The Antikythera Mechanism shatters that assumption. The work of experts like Derek de Solla Price revealed a device of such sophistication that nothing comparable would appear again until the mechanical clocks of the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. How could such advanced knowledge simply vanish from the historical record? Its very existence suggests an entire lineage of technical skill and astronomical understanding that was lost to time, forcing us to question what other marvels from antiquity still lie buried, waiting to challenge our narrative of the past. While the Antikythera Mechanism reveals a sophisticated understanding of mechanics, another artifact from a different empire suggests a grasp of principles even more fundamental to our modern world. In the 1930s, within the outskirts of Baghdad, a simple clay jar was unearthed. It looked unremarkable, the kind of pottery fragment often discarded. But inside, researchers found a carefully arranged secret. A copper cylinder housed an iron rod, and both were sealed in place with an asphalt plug. When Wilhelm Koenig studied the object, he proposed a startling theory. This was not a container for scrolls or spices. It was an ancient battery, dated to the Parthian period around 200 years before the Common Era. The vessel could have produced a mild electric current if filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine. The Baghdad Battery, as it became known, forces us to reconsider the timeline of electrical knowledge. The common narrative states that practical uses for electricity did not emerge until centuries later, yet here is a device that could have generated a small but measurable voltage. What was its purpose? Some experts suggest it was used for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto other objects. Others propose it had a role in religious ceremonies, perhaps creating a faint tingling sensation to inspire awe. The exact use remains one of history's quiet debates, but the implication is profound. It points to a culture experimenting with forces that classical history claims were beyond their reach. This single jar invites a larger question. How many other cultures independently stumbled upon such discoveries, only for that knowledge to be lost in the sands of time. It suggests that the spark of invention flickered in the ancient world in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. And if a simple jar could hold such potential, what wonders await discovery in the very stones beneath our feet? The quiet potential of a single battery jar feels worlds away from the monumental ambition rising from a Turkish hilltop. At Göbekli Tepe, the very definition of civilization is challenged. Here, on a windswept plateau, archaeologists uncovered not a village or a town, but a breathtaking temple complex of staggering scale. Its massive, T-shaped stone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, are arranged in vast circles. They are adorned with intricate, deep-cut reliefs of foxes, scorpions, and vultures, a menagerie of the ancient world frozen in stone. The truly staggering fact is its age. This site was deliberately buried around 9,600 years before the Common Era, a full 6 millennia before the Great Pyramid of Giza was even a concept. This timeline shatters a foundational pillar of classical history. The established narrative tells us that hunter-gatherers were nomadic, living hand-to-mouth, and that only the invention of agriculture provided the stable, surplus food supply necessary for large, settled communities and complex projects. Göbekli Tepe turns this idea on its head. It was built by people who, according to our textbooks, should have been incapable of such an undertaking. They moved and erected colossal stones without the wheel, without metal tools, and seemingly without a permanent farming settlement to support the labor. Experts like Klaus Schmidt proposed a revolutionary idea. What if it was not farming that created society, but the desire to build sacred places like Göbekli Tepe that first brought people together, eventually forcing them to invent agriculture to feed the workers? The precision of the carvings and the clear astronomical alignments of the pillars suggest a sophisticated understanding of the world, a lost knowledge that predates every known civilization. This is not merely an old building. It is a blueprint for a completely different origin story for humanity, one where collective belief and social organization came first, reshaping our entire landscape out of a shared, monumental vision. If such a profound truth can be buried under a single hill, what other secrets lie waiting across the ocean, hidden within the dense jungles of the Americas? Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, an immense gallery of art lies invisible to those standing within it. These are the Nazca lines, a sprawling network of hundreds of geometric shapes and elaborate depictions of animals, a colossal monkey with a spiraling tail, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider over 150 feet long. They were created by the Nazca people over a 1,000-year period, starting around 500 years before the Common Era, by simply removing the dark, sun-baked stones from the desert floor to reveal the lighter sand beneath. Their sheer scale is what defines their mystery. You cannot see the spider or the monkey from the ground. Their forms only cohere into perfect, recognizable shapes when viewed from high above. This fact alone ignites the central question: why would a culture create such monumental artwork for an audience they could never become? The classical view of ancient peoples struggles to explain such a project. How could they achieve such precision over miles of desert without a way to see their work from the necessary vantage point? The dedication of researchers like Maria Reich revealed the lines were executed with astonishing mathematical accuracy. She proposed they were a vast astronomical calendar, with certain lines pointing to the sun's position on the solstice or the rising of specific star groups. Others suggest they were ritual pathways walked by priests during sacred ceremonies to call upon the gods, perhaps for water in this unforgiving landscape. Yet the most enduring theory, the one that truly challenges our historical assumptions, is that the Nazca people might have possessed a method of early flight. While no evidence of balloons or gliders has been found, the possibility remains tantalizing. Could they have used hot air from fires to lift observers in simple tethered platforms, granting them the very perspective needed to guide the construction below? The lines stand as a permanent enigma, a testament to a culture that thought and built on a scale that defies simple explanation. They are a message etched into the planet itself, a puzzle whose solution seems to hover just beyond our reach. And if ancient peoples could transform entire landscapes into canvases for the sky, what other wonders did they carve from the very bones of the earth, hidden away in places we have yet to explore? In a dusty Istanbul library in 1929, a forgotten artifact resurfaced to redraw the map of history itself. This was the Piri Reis map, a stunning piece of cartography drawn on gazelle skin by the Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis in 1513. At first glance, it depicted the known coasts of Europe and Africa with remarkable precision. But its true mystery lay to the south, where it showed a landmass that should not have been charted for another 300 years. The map included a detailed, ice-free coastline of Antarctica. Admiral Reis himself noted in the margins that he had compiled his work from 20 older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. These original documents are now lost to time. The most baffling aspect is the map's accuracy. Modern seismic surveys have revealed the actual subglacial topography of the Antarctic continent, and the Piri Reis depiction aligns with these hidden contours with an eerie precision. It shows rivers, bays, and mountain ranges that have been buried under miles of ice for millennia. How could a 16th century cartographer know the shape of a land that would not be officially discovered until the 1800s, and whose true form we only confirmed with satellite technology in the 20th century? Historians like Charles Hapgood proposed a radical theory. He argued that the map preserves the cartographic knowledge of a truly ancient, perhaps even prehistoric, seafaring civilization. This culture would have had to explore and chart the Antarctic coast during a warm period, thousands of years before the ice cap formed. This single map challenges the entire timeline of human exploration. It suggests that our ancestors may have been master navigators, circumnavigating the globe and mapping its farthest reaches long before the voyages of Columbus or Magellan. What other advanced geographical knowledge was preserved in those lost source maps, only to fade into legend? This cartographic puzzle pulls our gaze from the frozen south to a different kind of frozen mystery, one locked deep within the glaciers of the Alps. A book exists that holds its secrets tighter than any vault. The Voynich Manuscript is a 225-page codex penned in the 15th century, a time when Europe was emerging from the Middle Ages. Its pages are filled from edge to edge with a flowing, elegant script in a language that has no known counterpart. Not a single word of it can be read. Alongside this inscrutable text are bizarre and beautiful illustrations that only deepen the mystery. You see unidentifiable plants with impossible roots, intricate astrological charts featuring unfamiliar constellations, and pages filled with tiny, naked women bathing in a system of interconnected green pools. It is a visual and linguistic enigma bound in vellum, named for the Polish book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, who brought it to light in 1912. The manuscript has withstood over a century of intense scrutiny from the world's top cryptographers and linguists. During World War II, codebreakers who famously cracked the German Enigma machine turned their skills to the Voynich, only to be completely defeated. They found patterns that suggested a real, structured language, with word repetitions and grammatical rules, yet the meaning remains perpetually out of reach. The most compelling theories are wildly different. Some argue it is an elaborate, meaningless hoax crafted to deceive a wealthy patron. Others propose it is a forgotten language, either natural or invented, used to encode alchemical or herbal knowledge. The most speculative suggest it could be a record of knowledge from a lost culture, or something even more otherworldly. What makes the Voynich Manuscript so disruptive to classical history is its stubborn refusal to be categorized. It sits squarely in a period we claim to understand, a time of rising scholarship and science, and yet it mocks our comprehension. It is a tangible reminder that the medieval mind was capable of creating complexities that our modern tools cannot unravel. This single book proves that our historical narrative has profound gaps, filled with lost ideas and silenced voices. If a text from just a few centuries ago can so utterly confound us, what does that say about our understanding of millennia? This puzzle of pen and ink gives way to a different kind of mystery, one forged in metal, that suggests connections across the ancient world long before we believed such travel was possible. Scattered across the river deltas of Costa Rica, hundreds of stone spheres lie as if abandoned by giants. These are the Diquís spheres, near-perfect balls of gabbro and limestone carved by pre-Columbian peoples between 300 and 1500 of the Common Era. They range dramatically in size, from small stones you could hold in your hand to colossal orbs over 2 meters in diameter, weighing several tons. Their surfaces are unnervingly smooth, their spherical shape achieved with a precision that seems almost machined. For archaeologists like Samuel Lothrop, who documented them in the 1940s, the immediate question was not just why they were made, but how. The people who crafted these spheres left no written records, and they possessed no metal tools. They would have used other, harder stones to hammer and grind the spheres into shape, a process of meticulous pecking and polishing that could have taken years for a single large specimen. The level of skill required to achieve such geometric perfection freehand is staggering. What was their purpose? Some spheres were found arranged in alignments that correspond to astronomical events, perhaps marking solstices or equinoxes. Others were placed in prominent positions near the homes of chiefs, possibly as symbols of power, celestial order, or territorial boundaries, yet their true meaning remains locked within the stone. Their existence directly confronts the classical view of Mesoamerican societies, forcing us to acknowledge a degree of artistic and engineering sophistication that we rarely attribute to these cultures. They represent a lost school of craftsmanship, a method of creation so refined that its secrets have completely vanished. These silent, perfect forms are a testament to a knowledge we can no longer access. And just as these spheres stand as monuments to a lost skill, another discovery points to a different kind of ancient genius, one that mastered the very flow of water itself in a way that would not be rivaled for centuries. Deep within a tomb at Saqqara, a small wooden object was unearthed, carved with the graceful form of a bird. Yet this was no ordinary bird. Dated to around 200 years before the Common Era, the artifact now known as the Saqqara bird possesses a vertical tail fin, a feature no bird in nature has ever had. Its wings are straight and aerodynamically shaped, more akin to the airfoil of a modern glider than the organic curves of a falcon or dove. For decades, it was catalogued as a simple children's toy or a ritualistic representation of a deity. But when Dr. Khalil Messiha studied the object in the 1970s, he saw something else entirely. He proposed that this was a scale model of a working glider or even an ornithopter, a machine designed to fly by flapping its wings. When replicas were built and tested, they demonstrated a surprising ability to achieve stable, gliding flight. The design incorporates principles of lift and stability that were not formally understood and codified until the work of the Wright brothers and other pioneers in the 20th century. Skeptics, of course, maintain that it is simply a stylized bird, perhaps a weather vane or a symbol of the soul. But the presence of that distinct tail fin, a component critical for stability in man-made aircraft, continues to fuel the debate. This small wooden artifact forces a difficult question. Were the ancient Egyptians merely skilled artisans, or were they also keen observers of the physical world, experimenting with concepts of flight in a way that classical history has never acknowledged? The Saqqara bird does not prove the existence of ancient airports, but it strongly suggests a line of inquiry, a spark of intuitive engineering that challenges the technological ceiling we have placed on the past. If such a concept could be carved from wood and placed in a tomb, what other advanced ideas were being explored in cultures now silent? This question pulls our search from the dry sands of Egypt to the vast, dark cradle of the ocean, where another impossible discovery lay waiting on the seafloor. Off the coast of Japan, an entire landscape rests in silent suspension beneath the waves. In 1986, a local diver exploring the waters near Yonaguni Island came upon a sight that defied belief. What he found were not random rock formations, but colossal structures that seemed to have been carved by an intelligent hand. Massive stone terraces descended like a grand staircase. Sharp, straight edges and perfect right angles met at clean intersections. One towering monolith, nicknamed the Turtle, even bore the appearance of a carved animal. The entire complex, now known as the Yonaguni Monument, stretches for over 150 meters, a sunken cityscape frozen in time. The controversy ignited immediately. Was this the work of nature or humankind? Geologist Masaki Kimura has spent decades studying the site, arguing vehemently for its artificial origin. He points to features that seem to have no natural explanation, such as twin pillars that appear to support a ceiling, narrow trenches that look deliberately carved, and what some interpret as a human face staring out from the stone. The most compelling evidence lies in the geometry. In nature, you rarely find such persistent symmetry. The consistent 90-degree angles, the parallel lines running for meters, the flat, level surfaces all suggest a guiding intelligence. If this is a natural formation, it is a geological anomaly of unprecedented order. The dating of the site adds another layer of profound mystery. Based on sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, the Yonaguni structures would have been above water and accessible around 10,000 years ago, or roughly 8,000 years before the Common Era. This timeline is a direct assault on classical history, which tells us that humanity was in its primitive infancy, barely emerging from the Stone Age. The idea that a culture capable of such monumental stonework existed in the Pacific so long before the pyramids of Egypt is revolutionary. It suggests a lost chapter of human history, a civilization submerged by rising oceans, its achievements forgotten beneath the waves. The debate between natural and man-made may never be fully settled, but the monument forces a humbling possibility. What we call the dawn of civilization may in fact be a much later era, a rebuild after a great forgetting. The silent stones of Yonaguni challenge us to look at the world's oceans not as empty spaces, but as the flooded archives of our deepest past. If such a grand structure can be lost to the sea, what other myths might be waiting to be verified as historical fact, hidden in plain sight within our oldest stories? In a private collection in Peru, thousands of andesite stones tell a story that defies every established timeline. These are the Ica stones, a vast assemblage of rocks ranging in size from pebbles to boulders, each one intricately carved with images that should not exist. Discovered in the 1960s and championed by a local physician, Dr. Javier Cabrera, The stones depict scenes that rip pages from both a medical textbook and a prehistoric bestiary. Here you find human figures performing what looks like a heart transplant or a cesarean section with startling precision. On another stone, people ride on the backs of stegosaurs and triceratops as if they were domesticated animals. The creatures are rendered with an anatomical accuracy that, according to conventional science, would have been impossible for the artists to know. The stones themselves are heavily oxidized, suggesting great age, yet their carvings show fresh, unweathered lines, a contradiction that lies at the heart of the controversy. The mainstream scientific community overwhelmingly dismisses the Ica stones as an elaborate modern hoax. Skeptics argue that local farmers, inspired by popular culture and comic books, created the carvings and then artificially aged the stones to sell to collectors. They point to the lack of a documented archaeological context, as the stones were not excavated in a controlled dig, but rather appeared on the market. Yet, even if they are forgeries, the sheer scale of the collection is baffling. Dr. Cabrera accumulated over 15,000 stones, a volume of work that would require a small army of artisans and an immense amount of time. Why would anyone go to such lengths? If it is a hoax, its purpose remains as mysterious as the stones themselves. But the possibility that even a few might be genuine forces a profound question. Could an ancient culture in Peru have discovered and studied dinosaur fossils, reconstructing the appearance of these giant beasts in their art? Or do the stones preserve a far more radical memory, one of a time when humans and dinosaurs actually coexisted? The Ica stones represent a boundary line in archaeology, a place where the desire for a lost history clashes with the rigorous demands of evidence. They challenge us not just with what they show, but with why we are so quick to dismiss what we cannot explain. This puzzle of stone and skepticism shifts our focus from South America to the heart of the Mediterranean, where a different kind of technological marvel was waiting to be unearthed. Encased within a solid nodule of Cretaceous rock, a simple tool became a profound mystery. The London hammer was discovered in Texas in 1936, perfectly embedded in stone that geologists date to over 100 million years ago. It is a worker's hammer with a wooden handle that has begun the process of turning to coal and an iron head of surprisingly pure composition. According to everything we know about human evolution, this object should not exist. Our species would not appear for another 99 million years. The hammer's discoverers, the Hon family, were as baffled as anyone, having simply cracked open a rock and found this anachronism inside. The immediate and obvious question is whether it is a genuine artifact from an impossibly ancient time or a more modern tool that somehow became lodged in older rock. Skeptics propose that dissolved limestone could have concreted around a hammer lost by a miner in the 19th century, forming a hard shell that only appears ancient. Yet analyzers of the iron have revealed a peculiar purity, with a lack of sulfur that suggests it was not smelted using modern industrial methods. This detail complicates the simple dismissal of the hammer as a recent loss. For those who argue for its authenticity, the hammer is a direct challenge to the entire timeline of life on Earth. It implies that a form of intelligent life, capable of crafting metal tools, walked the planet during the age of dinosaurs. This idea is so revolutionary that it threatens to unravel the foundations of paleontology and anthropology. The debate surrounding the London hammer highlights a critical issue in archaeology: the difficulty of interpreting objects that are violently out of place. Such artifacts force us to question our methods. Is our geological dating flawed in ways we do not understand, or are we missing entire chapters of prehistory, eras of intelligence that rose and fell long before our own? This humble tool, locked in stone, holds a weight far greater than its physical form, compelling us to ask if the deep past is far stranger than we have ever allowed ourselves to believe. From a single impossible tool, our search widens to an entire city that defies the very logic of ancient construction. While the London hammer presents a solitary anomaly, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro reveal an entire civilization operating with a modern sensibility. In the heart of the Indus Valley, around 2,500 years before the Common Era, a city thrived with an innovation we often take for granted: a sophisticated public water system. At its center stood the Great Bath, a large, meticulously constructed pool housed within a fortified citadel. This was not a natural pond or a simple reservoir. It was an architectural marvel, built with finely fitted bricks and sealed with a thick layer of bitumen, a natural tar, to make it completely waterproof. A complex network of channels and drains allowed for the bath to be filled with fresh water and efficiently emptied, while adjacent rooms likely provided space for bathers to change. The work of archaeologists like John Marshall brought this structure to light, revealing a level of civic planning and communal hygiene that would not be rivaled on such a scale until the Roman aqueducts and baths over 2 millennia later. This single structure shatters the classical image of ancient societies as primitive or unorganized. The people of Mohenjo-Daro were not merely surviving, they were engineering a comfortable, sanitary urban life. They built entire cities with grid-like street plans, uniform bricks, and household water wells, all serviced by a covered, city-wide drainage system. The existence of the Great Bath suggests a culture that valued ritual purity, public health, and social order to a degree that forces us to rewrite the story of human progress. Its sudden and mysterious decline around 1900 years before the Common Era leaves a haunting question. What other innovations in governance, science, and art vanished when this advanced society faded from history? The meticulous planning of Mohenjo-Daro makes us wonder if other ancient cultures were looking not just at the world around them, but far beyond, to the stars themselves. Deep within the crypt of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a stone relief carved over 2,000 years ago presents a vision that seems to leap from the pages of a modern science manual. The scene shows a large, bulb-like shape resting on a stand that resembles an insulating pillar. Inside this bulb, a snake stretches its body along the length, its head reaching the end of a narrow tube that connects to a box held by a kneeling god. To many observers, this is not a mythical beast, but a clear representation of a glowing filament, powered by a distant energy source via a thick, cable-like cord. This is the Dendera Light, a set of carvings that have ignited a fierce debate between orthodox archaeology and alternative history. Mainstream Egyptologists explain the imagery as a deeply symbolic depiction of a cosmic myth, showing the sun god emerging from a lotus flower, a serpent representing the divine power of creation. They see a religious narrative, not a technical diagram. Yet for researchers like Erich von Däniken, the parallels to 20th century electrical technology are too striking to ignore. The composition, with its distinct bulb, filament, and connecting cable, appears to be a literal illustration of an advanced device. If this interpretation holds, it suggests the ancient Egyptians might have possessed knowledge of electricity long before Galvani or Volta. What could they have used such a technology for? Perhaps to illuminate the pitch-black depths of tombs and pyramids where soot from torches has never been found. The debate itself is a fascinating artifact, revealing how our own modern perspective shapes the way we read the ancient world. We project our understanding of light bulbs onto their symbols, and in doing so, we ask if their achievements were merely spiritual or something more profoundly practical. The Dendera carvings remain an enigma, a testament to the fact that the line between ancient symbol and ancient science is often blurrier than we assume. This question of lost technology does not remain confined to a single temple wall, but seems to have left its mark across the globe, in places with no possible connection to ancient Egypt. The mummies of ancient Egypt were supposed to be sealed capsules of their own world, preserving a culture isolated by deserts and seas. Yet a series of chemical tests in the late 20th century ripped that assumption apart. Toxicologist Svetlana Balabanova was conducting routine analyses on hair and tissue samples from Egyptian mummies dated to around 1,000 years before the Common Era, expecting to find traces of local herbs and resins. Instead, her results revealed something impossible. Locked within the desiccated strands were definitive traces of cocaine and nicotine. These are two powerful alkaloids, but their source was the true shock. The coca plant and tobacco are native to the Americas, separated from Africa by the vast, stormy expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. According to the classical historical narrative, these two hemispheres had no contact until the voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1492. These chemical signatures, preserved for 3,000 years, suggest a very different story. The immediate and furious debate was over contamination. Could modern handling have introduced these substances? Balabanova and other researchers conducted meticulous controls, testing their equipment and the environments where the mummies were stored. The results held. The cocaine and nicotine were embedded deep within the tissue, a part of the individual's biology at the time of their death. If contamination is ruled out, the implications are staggering. It points to direct or indirect trade between the Nile and the Andes, long before any known civilization in the Americas had built its first great city. How could such a journey have been possible? The prevailing winds and currents of the Atlantic actually create a natural conveyor belt, a circular route that could have carried a vessel from the coast of Africa to the Americas and back again. Perhaps Egyptian or Phoenician sailors, the great mariners of the ancient world, were caught in a storm and blown across the ocean, returning with exotic plants that became a luxury for the elite. Or maybe the trade was indirect, a long, slow relay of goods passing from one culture to another across land bridges and islands, with the final products reaching Egypt as rare and precious commodities. This discovery fundamentally challenges the isolationist view of history, the comforting map we have of ancient civilizations developing in neat, separate bubbles. The cocaine mummies suggest a web of connection, a primitive globalization where ideas, goods, and even drugs were exchanged across distances we thought were impassable. It rewrites the history of exploration, not as a single moment of European discovery, but as a slow, recurring process lost to the fog of time. If nicotine and cocaine could cross an ocean, what else was traveling with them? Seeds, technologies, and stories could have been shared, leaving no physical trace behind. This chemical evidence forces us to see the ancient world as a place of bold voyages and unexpected linkages, a planet far more connected in its youth than we ever dreamed. And if such organic evidence can rewrite the map of human travel, what could a handful of metal, forged in a fire that should not have existed, say about the very age of humanity itself? Tucked away in a museum in South Africa, a collection of small, metallic spheres holds a secret billions of years in the making. Known as the Klerksdorp Spheres, these objects were unearthed from mineral deposits dated to an almost incomprehensible 3 billion years ago. They are perfectly round, some with fine, grooved lines encircling their equators as if machined by a precise tool. To the casual observer, they look like ball bearings dropped from some ancient piece of machinery. This is precisely the mystery that has captivated researchers and fueled speculation for decades. How could such symmetrical, manufactured-looking objects exist from a time when the most complex life on Earth was, at best, a single-celled organism? Geologists like Bruce Cairncross offer a natural explanation. They propose that these spheres are concretions, mineral masses that can form in spherical shapes as sediment accumulates layer by layer around a central nucleus in a process taking millions of years. The enigmatic grooves could be the result of immense pressure recrystallizing the minerals, creating lines of weakness. This is the orthodox scientific view, a slow, geological answer to a seemingly technological question. Yet the perfection of their form continues to challenge this comfortable explanation. The spheres are composed of a tough iron-nickel alloy called limonite, and their symmetry is so pronounced that they often roll perfectly on a flat surface. For those who question the mainstream narrative, these are not random quirks of nature. They appear to be artifacts, objects crafted by an intelligence that simply should not have existed. This leads to a profound and unsettling possibility. Could an advanced civilization have risen and fallen on Earth billions of years before our own, leaving behind only these metallic spheres as a trace of their industry? Or, as some have dared to suggest, might they be remnants of an extraterrestrial visit, a piece of interstellar debris left over from a time when our planet was still young? The Klerksdorp Spheres force us to confront the staggering gaps in our understanding of deep time. They are a humbling reminder that the vast majority of Earth's history is a closed book, and we have only read the final few pages. This geological puzzle does more than just question the timeline of human technology. It shatters the very framework of when intelligent life could have first appeared. And if our planet's ancient rocks can conceal such profound mysteries, what does that say about the journey of humanity itself, and the possibility that our ancestors walked this Earth far earlier than any textbook has ever claimed? The dusty hills of California's Mojave Desert hold stones that whisper of an impossible journey. At the Calico Early Man site, the legendary paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey unearthed what he believed were crude stone tools, simple scrapers and choppers buried in an ancient lake bed. The controversy was not about their simplicity, but about their staggering age. Geological dating placed these artifacts at 200,000 years old. This single number collides violently with the established story of the Americas. For decades, the dominant model, known as the Clovis First theory, asserted that the first humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia no earlier than 15,000 years ago. The Calico evidence, if genuine, would push that date back by a factor of over 10. It suggests a hominid presence so ancient that the travelers would not have been modern humans like us, but an earlier species such as Homo erectus, venturing into a new world eons before we thought possible. The debate that erupted was ferocious and deeply personal. Skeptics argued that the stones Leakey championed were not tools at all, but geofacts, rocks naturally fractured by the immense pressures of Earth and time. They pointed out that nature can produce sharp, conchoidal fractures that mimic human workmanship, and without clear signs of repeated, intentional striking, the evidence remained ambiguous. Leakey, a titan in his field, staked his reputation on Calico, seeing in those chipped stones the same patterns he had spent a lifetime studying in Olduvai Gorge. The site remains a battleground of interpretation, a lesson in how difficult it is to read the faintest handwriting of prehistory. What if both sides hold a piece of the truth? Perhaps the Calico stones represent a much earlier, failed migration, a population that arrived and then vanished without leaving a clear genetic trace in the modern indigenous peoples of the Americas. This site forces us to confront the fragility of our historical models, reminding us that a single, well-argued discovery can force a complete rewrite of the human story. The stones of Calico do not offer easy answers, only a profound question etched in flint, challenging us to reconsider who the first Americans really were and when their epic voyage truly began. This search for humanity's earliest footsteps gives way to a different kind of ancient expression, one where mystery is not found in stone tools, but in vast, silent figures gazing out from a remote landscape. Stitched into a 230-foot-long linen scroll, the Bayeux Tapestry chronicles the Norman conquest of England with vivid, almost cinematic detail. For generations, historians have studied its 70-plus scenes as a straightforward, if biased, account of the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Yet woven among the charging cavalry and falling soldiers are peculiar details that defy simple explanation. In one famous section, just after the appearance of Halley's Comet, the embroidered sky is filled with strange, floating objects. These are not stars, they resemble disc-like shapes with descending lines, as if suspended by chains from an unseen force. To the modern eye, they look unsettlingly like unidentified flying objects. Mainstream scholars offer a more grounded interpretation, suggesting these are simply symbolic representations of celestial events, or perhaps stylized lanterns carried in procession. They are part of the tapestry's rich visual language, not a literal recording of events in the sky. This rational view, however, collides with a compelling question. Why would the Norman artisans, meticulous in their depiction of armor, ships, and heraldry, choose to represent common lanterns or stars in such an anomalous and specific way? The very ambiguity forces a deeper examination of how we read historical sources. We tend to view artifacts like the Bayeux Tapestry as pure documentary evidence, a neutral window into the past. But what if these anomalies are a different kind of record? They could be symbolic representations of divine intervention, a way to signify that God favored the Norman cause. Or, more provocatively, they could be a literal depiction of unexplained aerial phenomena witnessed by the people of the time and immortalized in thread. This single embroidery challenges the classical view that historical records are transparent and easily decoded. It suggests that our ancestors may have recorded events beyond our current understanding, encoding mysteries in plain sight within their greatest works of art. The tapestry becomes more than a chronicle of a battle. It is a permanent question mark, reminding us that the past often speaks in a language of symbols we have forgotten how to read. This invitation to look closer at the familiar leads us to a place where ancient ambition literally moved mountains, revealing a technological prowess that should not have been possible. Scattered across the former territories of the Roman Empire, from the damp soil of Britain to the sun-baked fields of Hungary, lie strange metal artifacts that refuse to give up their secrets. The Roman dodecahedra are beautiful and baffling. Each one is a hollow bronze object about the size of a large apple, crafted with 12 perfectly flat pentagonal faces. Every face contains a circular hole of a different diameter, and at each of the object's 20 corners sits a small, solid knob. They are masterpieces of precise casting, yet they appear in no historical text, no inventory list, and no piece of Roman art. They are ghosts of a forgotten purpose. Archaeologists have uncovered over 100 of these enigmatic items, all dated to between the 1st and 4th centuries of the Common Era, a period we consider well documented. But the dodecahedra stand outside that understanding. What were they for? The theories are as varied as they are unproven. Some suggest they were sophisticated measuring devices, perhaps for determining the optimal planting dates for grain by aligning the holes with the sun, or for calculating distances on the battlefield. Others argue they were religious relics used by priests to hold ritual staffs, the knobs ensuring a secure grip. A more whimsical idea proposes they were tools for knitting gloves, a method that somehow disappeared from common use. Yet each explanation crumbles under scrutiny. The holes are not standardized, making them poor gauges, nor where patterns indicate they were used to grip wooden poles. The knitting theory, while creative, lacks any supporting evidence from textile finds. These objects defy the classical, utilitarian image of Roman engineering. We know the Romans for their straight roads and efficient aqueducts, but the dodecahedra speak to a different kind of intellect, one engaged with geometry, symbolism, and perhaps a form of applied knowledge we no longer recognize. They are a quiet lesson in humility, reminding us that even for a civilization we have studied for centuries, vast pockets of daily life and innovation remain completely lost to us. This tangible puzzle of metal and intent shifts our focus from a small, handheld mystery to an immense and inexplicable feat of construction, one that defies the very limits of ancient engineering. High above the modern city of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman stands as a monumental puzzle. Its walls are assembled from colossal limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, each one a unique, irregular polygon. Yet these gigantic stones fit together so perfectly that their seams are virtually invisible. You cannot force a razor blade or even a single piece of paper into the gaps between them. This is not a wall held together by mortar, but by the sublime precision of its own geometry. Built by the Inca around 1400 of the Common Era, the structure defies every assumption about the tools available at the time. The Inca possessed no iron, no steel, and no wheels for transportation. How did they quarry, move, and shape these behemoths with only stone hammers and bronze chisels? The classical view of pre-Columbian engineering struggles to account for such perfection. Some researchers propose a lost technique involving patient pecking and grinding with harder stones, a process that could have taken generations. Others point to the possibility of a plant-based solvent, a juice that could have softened the granite surface just enough to be shaped, a knowledge since vanished from the historical record. The most compelling theories suggest this was not an invention, but an inheritance. The Inca themselves claimed they built upon the foundations of a far older megalithic culture, a race of giants or gods who taught them the art of stone. The walls of Sacsayhuaman, with their interlocking forms that have withstood centuries of earthquakes, feel less like a construction and more like a single, carved entity. They are a testament to a knowledge so profound that its methods have completely disappeared, leaving behind only the silent, immovable proof of its existence. This architectural marvel forces us to wonder if our timeline of human ingenuity is missing entire chapters of advanced skill, passed down and then lost. From this fortress of stone, our gaze is pulled upward to the night sky, where another civilization left behind an artifact that mapped the heavens with equal precision. Crafted from bronze and adorned with shimmering gold, the Nebra Sky Disc feels like a modern astronomer's chart misplaced in time. Unearthed by treasure hunters in Germany and painstakingly studied by researchers like Harold Meller, this artifact dates to an astonishing 1600 years before the Common Era. It is a portable map of the heavens, the oldest of its kind ever found. Upon its surface, a golden crescent moon and a full sun or moon arc across a field of stars, with a cluster of 7 points believed to represent the Pleiades constellation. Along the edge, golden arches frame the horizon, a sophisticated addition that transformed the disk from a simple star chart into a functional calendar. By aligning the disk with the actual sky, its Bronze Age users could determine the correct time to plant crops or hold festivals, reconciling the lunar and solar years with a precision that historians never attributed to the tribes of ancient Europe. This single object dismantles the classical view of these peoples as primitive warriors concerned only with survival. It reveals a society with deep cosmological knowledge, a culture that looked to the stars and saw not just gods, but a measurable, predictable clockwork. The Nebra Sky Disc rewrites entire chapters of European prehistory, proving that the longing to understand the cosmos is a human constant, not the sole province of later, so-called advanced civilizations. Its celestial guidance pulls our focus from the stars above to the very ground below, to a material so advanced it seems to have fallen from the sky itself. Rising over 20 feet high in the heart of Delhi, a pillar of iron has defied the elements for more than 1,600 years. Forged around the year 400 of the Common Era, it stands completely exposed to the monsoons and the scorching sun, yet it shows almost no sign of the rust that should have consumed it centuries ago. This is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, a metallurgical marvel that simply should not exist. Modern scientific analysis has revealed its secret, a protective layer called a passive film, created by a precise and unusually high phosphorus content in the iron. The ancient smiths who crafted it did not have our understanding of chemistry, yet they achieved a feat that modern industry only began to replicate in the 20th century. They somehow knew how to mix the iron with the right amount of phosphorus during the smelting process, a delicate balance that prevents corrosion while maintaining the metal's strength. This was not an accident. It represents a sophisticated, intentional technique, a school of metalworking knowledge that was clearly advanced for its time and has since vanished from common practice. The pillar's endurance directly confronts the classical narrative of technological progress, which often paints ancient societies as less capable. Here is proof of a forgotten innovation, a testament to the profound skill of Indian artisans who mastered their craft in ways we are still striving to fully comprehend. It forces us to ask what other formulas for creating durable alloys or resistant materials have been lost to history, their recipes forgotten in the ashes of time. This single, uncorroded monument points to a world where ancient science achieved heights we are only now rediscovering. From this testament to Indian ingenuity, our journey takes us to a final, startling sight that suggests the ancient world was far more interconnected than we ever believed. Buried deep in the mausoleum of China's first emperor, an army of silent soldiers stands guard for eternity. Discovered by farmers in 1974, the Terracotta Army is a breathtaking collection of thousands of life-sized clay figures, each with unique facial features and detailed armor, created to accompany Qin Shi Huang into the afterlife around 210 years before the Common Era. While the scale of the army is staggering, the true anomaly lies not in the clay, but in the cold, hard metal they once held. Archaeologists unearthed bronze swords and crossbow triggers that defied all expectation. After being buried for over 2 millennia, these weapons emerged from the earth not as corroded relics but as sharp, gleaming, and ready for battle. Scientific analysis uncovered their secret, a thin layer of chromium oxide plating that protected the bronze from tarnish and decay. This is a form of anti-corrosion technology that modern industry would not develop and patent until the 20th century. How did ancient Chinese metallurgists achieve this feat? The process likely involved a complex treatment with chromium salts, a technique that required a sophisticated understanding of chemistry and a controlled workshop environment far beyond what classical history attributes to this era. These were not merely ceremonial blades, they were functional, durable weapons engineered to last forever, and they succeeded. The chromium plating is a silent scream of advanced knowledge, a specific formula that was perfected, used on an industrial scale for the emperor's army, and then seemingly forgotten for centuries. This single technological leap forces us to question the linear narrative of progress. It suggests that innovation can be a flickering flame, burning brightly in one era only to be extinguished and then independently rediscovered much later. The Terracotta Army is more than a monument to imperial power. It is a museum of lost science, its secrets preserved in the very metal meant to protect an emperor in the next world. Such a tangible link to a mythic past pulls our focus to another discovery, one that seems to have stepped directly from the pages of legend into the realm of archaeology. Far across Europe, a different kind of record was being pressed into clay. The Tartaria Tablets, 3 small, inscribed clay discs discovered in Romania, carry a message we can no longer understand. Dated to approximately 5,300 years before the Common Era, they are a collection of symbols, a series of lines and shapes arranged with clear intention. Some of the markings look strikingly like a rudimentary pictograph of a goat, while others resemble abstract symbols for vessels or perhaps even deities. To archaeologists like Marija Gimbutas, these were not random scratches. She saw them as a system of proto-writing, a form of symbolic communication that predates the earliest known Sumerian cuneiform by several hundred years. This single claim places these humble tablets at the center of a fiery debate. If they are a form of writing, the entire narrative of human literacy must be redrawn. The classical story is clear and tidy, that writing was invented in Mesopotamia to manage the accounts of sprawling cities, a practical tool for bureaucracy that then spread outward. The Tartaria Tablets shatter this linear progression. They suggest that the human impulse to record thought in permanent symbols did not have one single birthplace, but flickered to life independently in multiple cultures, a cognitive leap that happened more than once across the ancient world. Skeptics offer a powerful counter-argument that the tablets are not writing at all, but ritual objects, perhaps prayer tablets or sacred tokens bearing religious symbols with no linguistic meaning. They point out that no other similar texts have been found in the region to form a corpus for translation, yet the possibility remains, a quiet challenge pressed into baked clay. These tablets are not grand monuments, but they hold a mystery as profound as any pyramid. They force us to ask if the dawn of written language was not a sudden sunrise in one place, but a slow, spreading glow across the human mind, with some of its earliest sparks now lost and forgotten. This fundamental question of human expression brings us to a final discovery that challenges not just history, but the very ground we walk upon. Along the banks of the Mureș River in Romania, construction workers unearthed an object that seemed to defy the very soil in which it was buried. In 1974, deep within a trench alongside mastodon bones, they found a heavy, wedge-shaped piece of metal. This was the Aiud Artifact, a lump of aluminum alloy encased in a thick layer of oxide that spoke of immense age. The geological stratum where it was found dated to an astonishing 11,000 years before the Common Era, a time when humanity was supposedly navigating the end of the last ice age with stone-tipped spears. The problem is elemental. Aluminum is not found pure in nature. It requires an advanced industrial process to extract it from bauxite ore, a technology that was not developed until the 1820s. When metallurgists finally analyzed the artifact, they confirmed it was a complex alloy composed primarily of aluminum, with traces of copper, zinc, and silicon. This was not a natural nugget, it was a manufactured product. The implications of this single object lying in ancient sediment are staggering. It suggests the presence of a culture capable of high-temperature smelting and sophisticated metallurgy at a time when, according to our history books, no such thing should have been possible. The debate over its origin is a microcosm of the entire field of forbidden archaeology. skeptics propose it is simply a fragment of a modern excavator bucket that fell into the trench and became lodged in older material. Yet the thick, layered patina covering the object, which experts argue would take centuries to form, challenges this simple explanation. For those who argue for its authenticity, the artifact points to only two radical possibilities. Either a now vanished advanced human civilization existed in prehistory, mastering technologies we thought were our own inventions, or this piece of metal is evidence of something else entirely, a visitor from beyond our world. The Aiud Artifact is a cold, hard knot in the timeline of human progress, a physical object that refuses to fit into our carefully constructed past. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable idea that our story is incomplete, that chapters of immense achievement may have been lost, their pages scattered and buried, waiting for a chance discovery to rewrite everything we think we know. This metallic enigma pulls our focus from a single impossible object to a final, grander mystery, one where the line between the natural world and human genius becomes beautifully, impossibly blurred. Our final discovery pushes the boundaries of belief into the realm of pure legend. In a remote mountain cave on the border between China and Tibet, a tale emerged of 716 stone discs, each with a spiral groove emanating from a central hole, like a prehistoric phonograph record. According to the story, these Dropa stones were excavated in 1938 by a Chinese archaeologist from a burial site containing the remains of small, large-headed skeletons. The discs were said to be incredibly ancient, dating back 12,000 years. The legend grew even more extraordinary when a researcher supposedly found that the grooves were not decorative, but were actually a continuous line of microscopic hieroglyphs, a script so tiny it required a magnifying glass to see. The translated text, it was claimed, told a tragic story of a spacecraft crash landing on Earth, its alien occupants, the Dropa, stranded and unable to return home. This narrative, heavily promoted by authors like Erich von Däniken, became a cornerstone of the ancient astronaut theory, suggesting that human history was shaped by extraterrestrial visitors. Yet the entire story rests on a foundation of sand. No major museum holds a Dropa stone. The original Chinese archaeologist has never been reliably identified, and the sensational claims have been widely and thoroughly dismissed by the scientific community as an elaborate hoax, a modern myth woven around what were likely common stone artifacts called by discs. So why include them in a list of archaeological anomalies? The Dropa stones serve as a crucial, final lesson. They exist at the absolute fringe, where the human desire for a dramatic past collides with the rigorous demands of evidence. They illustrate how easily a compelling story can be built around a mysterious object, and how that story can then take on a life of its own, challenging classical history not with facts but with pure, irresistible imagination. They remind us that the line between a world-altering discovery and an engaging folktale can be dangerously thin. As we look back across these 25 discoveries, from the undeniable genius of the Antikythera Mechanism to the speculative fantasy of the Dropa stones, a single, unifying thread emerges. Our past is not a closed book with a fixed narrative. It is a dynamic, living puzzle filled with artifacts that refuse to sit quietly in their assigned timelines. Each one, whether validated or vanquished, challenges the comfortable story we tell ourselves about human progress. They force us to remain humble, to question, and to keep looking, because the next shovel of earth might finally reveal a truth more astonishing than any fiction. This grand tapestry of discoveries reveals a fundamental conflict at the heart of our quest to understand the past. Classical history, the established narrative we all learned in school, is built upon a foundation of written records and widely accepted archaeological evidence. It presents human development as a steady, linear climb from primitive beginnings to modern complexity. Yet, the artifacts we have explored together, from the Antikythera Mechanism to the chromium-plated swords of the terracotta army, refuse to follow this neat trajectory. They are the jagged edges, the data points that do not fit the smooth curve of progress. They whisper of a different story, one punctuated by dramatic leaps of innovation, profound losses of knowledge, and the possible rise and fall of societies that left behind only the faintest of traces. This is where the great debate unfolds. On one side, researchers like Graham Hancock propose a radical rewriting of history, suggesting a lost, advanced civilization was wiped out by a cataclysm at the end of the last ice age, its survivors seeding knowledge across the globe. They see these anomalies as the scattered pieces of a forgotten whole. Mainstream archaeology, on the other hand, urges caution and rigorous verification, warning against the seductive pull of sensationalism. For every Baghdad battery, they demand a verifiable context. For every Ica stone, they seek undisputed provenance. This tension is not a weakness in the field, but its greatest strength. It is the essential friction between the daring to explore new possibilities and the discipline required to ground those possibilities in evidence. This dynamic struggle ensures that our story of the past remains a living, evolving narrative, not a dogma set in stone. Each of these 25 discoveries, whether ultimately validated or debunked, serves as a vital reminder that history is not a closed book. It is an ongoing excavation, both of the earth and of our own understanding. The true significance of these mysteries is not that they provide easy answers, but that they compel us to keep asking better questions, to look deeper, and to remain humble in the face of a past that is far more mysterious and magnificent than we ever imagined. From the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the controversial legend of the Dropa stones, this journey through 25 anomalies reveals a consistent pattern, a chorus of artifacts demanding a reconsideration of our past. Each one stands as a defiant question mark against the neat timeline of classical history, forcing us to confront the possibility of lost knowledge and forgotten civilizations. They remind us that the story of humanity is not a simple upward climb, but a complex tapestry woven with threads of brilliance, mystery, and profound loss. The true value of these discoveries is not in providing definitive answers, for many remain fiercely debated, but in how they cultivate a vital sense of humility and wonder. They teach us to approach the past not with rigid certainty, but with an open and curious mind, always prepared for the next find that could rewrite everything we thought we knew. These puzzles of stone, metal, and ink are an invitation to question the established narrative, to celebrate the boundless ingenuity of our ancestors, and to continue exploring the vast, uncharted territories of our own history. If this journey into the unknown has ignited your curiosity, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world's greatest enigmas. We would love to hear which of these discoveries you find the most compelling, so share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining this exploration of the past's most enduring puzzles.